feeling I'd have the fifth inning. So I was inside. Came out and threw. It was kind of weird. Definitely not my normal routine, but you gotta deal the card you're dealt. And I came out and just let it rip whenever they told me to, and I got the save. So that's cool.
Maybe the win as well, because Luis going 4. So you've done the starter first, now the second guy the second time. So is it getting more, I guess, comfortable now that you've done both situations?
This setup's not very comfortable, but like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, I get to come out and pitch in the big leagues, and something that I've dreamed about my whole life. So would I rather start the game? Yeah, but anytime I can be on the mound in the big leagues, I'll be grateful for it. So.
Man, you can kind of read between the lines right there. Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo are doing their best to handle their piggyback pitching roles. It is time for our weekly verbal salvo from Dave Softy Mahler of Sports Radio 93.3 KJR FM. Great to have you with us, my man. How you doing?
I was doing fine until I heard that first segment. My God, this is going to have to make me reevaluate this entire thing, to be totally honest with you. I mean, we're handing out B's, and we're handing out on a curve now here. That's how the Mariners are judged, because every other kid in class is a moron. The bad grades are getting rewarded here. I mean, Chris, if your son Luke, who's 15 years old, came home with a D and said, "Dad, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is I got a D. Good news is it's the best grade in class because every other kid is an idiot." What would you tell your kid for crying out loud? What's wrong with you?
Dave, if they're grading on a curve and it's an A, all of a sudden then I'm okay with it.
Yeah. And I'm sure when it comes to applying for colleges in a couple years, they'll buy the whole curve thing, and your kid will be just fine. Look, this team is underachieving, guys. There's no question about that, and there's reasons for it, which all of us have documented, obviously, a ton on this show in the last couple of months. Injuries to the bullpen for sure. Brandon Donovan, Cal Raleigh, they're 5-6 without Cal Raleigh, by the way. There's reasons why the team is 3 games under 500, but we're also seeing some things that make you kind of wonder, what's going on here, guys? I mean, that game on Sunday was an absolute train wreck. I mean, Randy Arozarena looks like a little leaguer in left field. Julio Rodriguez being late for an at-bat because he's yelling at Randy about his defense. Are you kidding me? Like, what are we doing here, guys? I mean, this stuff has got to stop. And Paul and Chris, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, for all the Dan Wilson critics, for all the Dan Wilson haters out there, this is just throwing gas on the fire for them. You got a failure. I'm going to quote a little Cool Hand Luke here. You guys are old enough to remember Cool Hand Luke. What we have is a failure to communicate here on this baseball team, not just with Bryce Miller, not just with Luis Castillo, but also with Julio Rodriguez. That Julio, there's a new rule now, by the way. If you're late for an AB, you get a strike against you. So get your ass out of the dugout and get to home plate and yell at Randy later. So all of this falls under the umbrella of what Dan Wilson is responsible for. It's a bad look for him, and it's been a bad week for him, no question about it. They got to snap out of it, guys.
Dave, I'm actually okay, Dave, with Julio being late for that at bat. It didn't really cost anything. If he was laying into if he's laying into Randy Arozarena, if he decides that he needs to be the leader of this team, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with, Dave, is what happened. Yes, and I'm not okay, honestly, with the play of Randy on that Sunday game. That was just a disaster. But let's go to yesterday's game. We should be celebrating. We should be talking about 4 home runs. Luke Raley going deep. Dominic Canzone. Randy with the big at bat. But the failure to communicate, Dave, I'm just not understanding why Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo, this is the second time through, and I don't like what's happening, but is nobody telling him what is happening? Because it doesn't make sense to me when I'm watching.
Right. No, I'm totally with you. And first of all, if you're okay with Julio being late, are you okay with me being late for this show next week? Because I'm off the air yelling at Joel for his ridiculous takes he puts on television. So if you're okay with that, and I'm a couple minutes late next week, you better not yell at me, Chris, okay? Because I deserve a pass if Julio gets one. No, I'm kidding, obviously. But guys, here's the deal. And Chris, you're exactly right, man. I mean, Bryce Miller said yesterday that he wasn't even aware up until a day or two what the plan was, and then Luis Castillo flips out when he gets pulled out of the game like he did not know the plan, but then admits that he did know what the plan was. So I don't think that you can treat every player the same, guys. I think you have to look at this as a gray area, not a black and white deal. Bryce Miller wants to be be approached a certain way. Luis Castillo wants to be approached a certain way. Sometimes, and you guys know this as well as I from covering baseball as long as we have, sometimes you got 26 guys in that clubhouse with 26 different personalities, and it sounds like they're not approaching these individuals, Paul, the way they need to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The fact that, Dan Wilson and this whole Mariners team has built this culture within that clubhouse, and they've talked about it for the last year and a half or so, that they're a real family in there, and they play for each other. And you can't have this, what's happening with the piggyback and what's happening out in the field and some of these this so-called drama that's being built up. You can't have that splintering what they have in the clubhouse. So that's one of the strengths of this team, and what carried them so deep into the playoffs last year was that they played so well as a team. So do you see this as just a minor thing, or do you see this as possibly getting bigger and bigger?
Well, I mean, the obvious point is that if they continue to lose, it's going to snowball, right? I mean, some teams can overcome, obviously, losing streaks. They can overcome being in a big hole. Does this team have the mental fortitude now, if they fall behind 5 or 6 games behind the A's or the Texas Rangers, to overcome something like that? I think that is fair to ask. After all the cracks that we've seen in the boat in the last couple of weeks, questions like that are fair to ask. And then, Paul, just going back to the piggyback thing for a second. Look, man, and you guys said this in the first segment. It was the one lucid point that you guys actually made, that it's kind of working, right? Like, without blowing it in the 9th inning, which was a terrible mistake to put Luis Castillo out there for the 9th inning against the White Sox last week. Outside of that, the approach has been pretty much working between Luis Castillo and Bryce Miller. My issue is this: moving forward now, if Luis Castillo was that ticked off about getting yanked after 68 pitches and 4 innings of shutout ball, what's his reaction going to be when they tell him he's going to the bullpen full time? He may flip out and punch a hole in the wall, for crying out loud. So that's got to be rectified. And then number 2, I happen to think Bryce Miller, look, I agree with Chuck Powell, our morning guy, and KJR. He said it this morning. He's exactly right. Bryce Miller might be one of your top 3 starting pitchers on this baseball team. And if that's the case, then he is worth way more to your club than coming in with a 7-0 lead in the 5th inning and mopping that thing up. He needs to be starting every 5th day for this baseball team. I still think at some point they got to pull off the Band-Aid. They got to make a move, and they got to make Bryce Miller that guy right there, their number 5 starter, and they got to put Luis Castillo in the bullpen and start to rock and roll, because this idea that these guys are now tethered to each other and one guy can't pitch without the other. I mean, look, you had an opportunity in yesterday's game to let Luis Castillo go maybe 6 innings and then maybe save Bryce Miller in a bullpen role for maybe tomorrow. But you can't do that, because now you're going to flip him again and you're going to start Bryce Miller in 4 days from now. So this creates all kinds of problems on the back end. Chris and Paul, you guys talked about it, and you're exactly right, Paul. It's been working okay for now. The question is, what does it mean long term? Will the players buy in, and will this be the best thing for Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo when it's all said and done?
Well, and I agree with Chuck, and I would add to both of you, too. I mean, Bryce Miller, yes, he is one of the top 3 pitchers on this rotation right now. And guess what? Bryce Miller wants to be a starter, and Bryce Miller wants to get paid some money, and I think 100%. He deserves that. So
it's not sustainable. That's my biggest thing, Chris, and we've talked about it. It's not sustainable. You can piggyback this, throw this piggyback concept out there all you want. This isn't going to work all summer long. It's not. It's not sustainable. So what is the bigger picture? What is the answer? And I agree with you guys. I think Bryce Miller's there. I think it's conceivable that Jerry DiPoto makes a deal for Luis Castillo if he continues to this upward trend of getting back on track. But I like the fact that they could deal him and get out of this. And let's keep this in mind. You got 5 starters out there, 6 kind of right now, but 5 is the 5-man rotation is what you have in baseball typically. I mean, no one else is using this piggyback concept, and all the other teams, but the Mariners seem to think it works. It's not sustainable, but I will ask you this. There's going to be injuries no matter what when it comes to pitching. These guys are just throwing hard on these arms all summer long, and so they're going to need to have these starters like a Cade Anderson down there who's waiting to come up here and start firing and see how he does. But again, there's going to be injuries. So you have to have starters, in the bullpen, so to speak, just to be able to bring them up.
Yeah, I just think that Bryce Miller deserves to start every fifth day, and right now Luis Castillo does not. I mean, to me, it's a pretty simple concept. Look, I know he was great for 4 innings yesterday against the A's in Sacramento, which is a hard place to pitch, by the way. So kudos to him for getting through all that nonsense. Yesterday, I mean, we saw the best and worst of J.P. Crawford, a home run in the top of the inning, a horrible throw into the camera well, almost hit Brad Adam right in the face in the bottom of the inning, for crying out loud. So these guys are overcoming all kinds of nonsense from their defense. So kudos to Luis for yesterday. But Bryce Miller has been consistently a better pitcher in this rotation. He deserves to start every fifth day. Luis Castillo should be in the bullpen. Simply put, that's it. That's all. Let's not overthink this. You want to goof around. You want to mess around with this for a couple weeks, whatever, and get everybody comfortable. Get Luis Castillo comfortable with being in the bullpen for the first time in his life. Fine, whatever. But, Paul, I agree with you. At some point, you got to pull the plug and go back to what works, and that's pitching your best guys every fifth day, bottom line.
Hey, Softy, I spent this weekend with 27 Top Gun pilots that serve our country. Don't start acting like Brad Adam was down there in the barricades protecting our country from a J.P. Crawford bad throw. Come on,
listen,
Softy.
You may have hung out with the Top Gun pilots, but have you ever vomited inside of a Blue Angel, by the way? Because I have, all right? I flew a Blue Angel 25 years ago. I had 2 Egg McMuffins. I went up in that thing, and I barfed all over the side of that cockpit. So you talk to me when you actually fly in a fighter jet, all right, pal, as opposed to hanging out with guys that fly fighter jets. I don't want to hear your nonsense.
Okay, I don't know how I transition, but I'll just stay right there with J.P. Crawford.
Here, hang on. Time out. Wait a minute. Hang on. This is great. This is live television, so this will work. Look at that. Look at that, boys, right there. Hang on. That's me in a Blue Angel. Right there, you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Was that the year
in a Blue Angel?
Paul, was that the year you and I said no, so they went with Softy?
Yeah, I think he was third choice that year. So, but
yeah, you like that, huh? You see?
That's nice.
Yeah. They give you a barf bag. They give you a plastic barf bag to throw up in, and I missed the entire bag and ended up all over the side of the cockpit.
But didn't they ask you whether you wanted the rough ride or the smooth ride? I mean, was that part of the deal?
I just remember taking off, and we're pulling, what is it, Paul, 5 or 6 Gs? I'm not sure what it is. Whatever it is. Yeah. And then you slow down, and you feel like you're not even moving. You're going 450, 500 miles an hour, man. So the scary thing, by the way, was the Red Baron plane. Have you guys done one of those?
The open cockpit plane.
They go into their barrel roll, and there's about 1/10 of an inch of slack on your seatbelt for about a half a second. You're falling out of that bad boy and staring right at Mercer Island, right underneath your eyeballs. That's scary as heck, man. That was nuts.
That at all. Yeah. So you were in Red Baron? You did that?
I did both, the Red Baron and the Blue Angel.
Yeah,
I did not vomit in the Red Baron, though, only in the Blue Angel.
Yeah. I can't even do the extreme scream at the Washington State Fair, so I mean, no.